Hey, what's going on guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'll be reviewing the Reebok Nano 2. This is a shoe that I've had a lot of asks for, and I do apologize on the delay on getting this up. I was away over the weekend at Miss Meg Squat's wedding in Mexico, so I took the weekend off of working on the internet and posting on socials, but we did get some workouts in the shoe and I've been training in them over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. 3 pros that I have with this model is number 1, the nostalgia. I think when I put the shoe on, I was kind of like, I don't know really what to expect because it's been so long since I've worn a Reebok Nano 2, but dang, it felt really good to get back into one of these older Nano models because honestly, they're really strong performers and I kind of forgot how awesome they were. So I think the first pro of the shoe is just the overall nostalgia that they gave me. And low key, that nostalgia feeling took me back to a nice time in life when things seemed to be a little bit more simple. The second pro that I have with this shoe is that if you like low profile training shoes that give you a nice level of stability, I think you're gonna really like the Reebok Nano 2. So this model reminds me of a blend of like a Nano 8 regarding its overall stability and a Speed TR with its overall fit and stability. So with this model's low profile EVA foam midsole, it runs a little bit more on the dense side. So if you like stabler midsoles for your training shoes, and if you like being a little bit closer to the ground because this model's stack height isn't incredibly high, I do think you'll enjoy that with the Nano 2. The third pro that I have with the shoe is its width and its upper construction. So the upper in the Nano 2 tends to be pretty dang durable, and honestly, if you're using this model for a little bit of CrossFit lifting and versatile training, the shoe should last you a while regarding its upper. The textile overlays do a pretty good job with abrasion resistance, and you also get that DuraGrip material that covers the toe box and that rope protect in the shoe. So from an abrasion point of view, this model tends to do a pretty good job. And then when it comes to width, the shoe has a nice width to it. So honestly, I forgot how nice the Nanos did feel regarding their width, especially through the forefoot here. But we have a little bit more of an anatomical width up here through the toe box. It's not as aggressive with the taper, and truthfully, I do miss this. While the Nano X3 does have a slightly wider fit, this model feels exceptionally wider compared to that shoe, and I think a lot of that has to do with the upper volume. But that being said, let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the Nano 2. All right, so 2 cons I could see folks having with the Reebok Nano 2 is number 1, the tongue security of this shoe. So I forgot about this when I put this model on, but this model does not have a gusseted tongue and it can be a little bit prone to sliding. So we have a singular loop up here and we have a wide mesh tongue. Typically, the combination of these construction elements will typically lead to a tongue that can move a little bit during your workouts. So I think if you're doing a lot of jumping and lateral work, you might notice that this tongue slides a bit. I noticed that during one of my workouts. It's not the biggest deal and you could always just pull it back to center, but it is definitely one of those things where it's like, Reebok, if you put a little gusset in this, you are cooking with fire because that would make this shoe nearly perfect in my opinion regarding its simplistic construction. The second con that I could see folks having with this shoe, if you like a plusher midsole with your training shoe, and if you're not planning to just do CrossFit and heavier lifting in your training shoes, you might want to look into a model that's a little bit more plush with its feel. So for example, if you've grown accustomed to the Nano X1, Nano X2, and Nano X3s midsole and how that feels for your training, you might find that this shoe runs a little bit too stable for your needs. That's going to be a lot of personal preference, so it's not really a knock on the shoe because I personally love this midsole feel and stability, but I know it's not something that's going to resonate with everybody. And so again, if you're somebody who's going to be doing a lot of HIIT and you want a shoe that can be a little bit more hybrid friendly with your overall needs, the Nano 2 might not be the best option for you because these are going to run a little bit more stable. So to break down the performance of the Nano 2, I'll discuss this model's performance for lifting, CrossFit, versatile training, short runs, and daily wear. In the context of lifting, I really enjoy this shoe. So you don't have that much toe spring, so it's really easy to get a nice flatter base with the shoe when you're lifting, so you could easily press those toes down and have a nice flat shoe to train on. And with that EVA foam midsole, you get a nice level of stability. When working around 495 pounds for deadlifts for reps, this shoe didn't compress whatsoever, and I like the stability that you get with this model regarding its overall performance for lower body movements. Plus, with this rubber outsole, you get a nice level of tread, so whether you're training on wooden platforms, rubber gym floors, or you're working out on machines, the shoe should do a pretty good job of providing you with a nice level of grip. And the width through the forefoot is another perk of this shoe because you can really splay those toes and grip the floor. In the context of CrossFit, this model does a really good job as well. I think the durability of this shoe should be pretty on point. I mean, after all, there's a reason Reebok is bringing back the Nano 2. It's because it is one of the most beloved models of the Nano line. And also, I like how lightweight and wispy this shoe is and that you get a nice level of flexibility with this model. So again, if you like low profile training shoes that are a little bit more flexible, lightweight, and stable, I think you're really gonna resonate with this model. And plus, I don't know how long this shoe is gonna be back. I don't know if they're gonna restock sizes. So if you are somebody who's into CrossFit and you love the older Nanos, that would definitely be something to consider with the shoe, and you might want to pick up a pair before they're all sold out. For versatile training, I personally like this shoe. However, I think it's going to be a little bit hit or miss depending on your needs. I think if you're somebody who likes having a plusher midsole that's a bit more responsive regarding its overall springiness on the ground, you might want to pass on this shoe because, again, with this midsole, while it does give you a little bit of responsiveness, it's a little bit more stable and you're going to have a lot more ground feedback through the foot. And so if you're not really a fan of that and you're not really a fan of more minimalist feeling training shoes, that would definitely be something to consider with a shoe. But I think if you're like me and you want a shoe that gives you a lot of ground feedback where you can really feel the ground and it's a little bit more rigid with its overall feel, I think you will enjoy this shoe. Plus you get a good level of security with this model's upper, and it is super lightweight, which is another perk in the context of versatile training. For shorter runs, this model can work for some sprint work and for some runs that are like 400 meters and down. So basically shorter runs programmed in WODs or athletic style training sessions. But for mid distance and long distance runs, I would say pass on this shoe because it runs a little bit more stable. If you're like me and if for your longer runs you adapt a little bit more of a midfoot to heel strike, that would definitely be something to consider with a shoe because it's going to make it more uncomfortable. But for sprint and short run focused training sessions, this model should do a pretty good job because you're going to be more forefoot dominant anyways, and that's going to be kind of a non-issue regarding the stability and the feel of this shoe's heel hitting the ground. In the context of daily wear, I would say pass on this shoe. Like, do they look pretty good? Yeah. Can you wear them for daily wear? 100%. However, I think if you want this shoe to last, you'll get more out of their lifespan just passing on them when it comes to day-to-day wear. Plus, since this model is likely a limited release, if you're worried about not having stock in this shoe in the next couple of months, you'll definitely want to pass on them for daily wear as well because you'll get more out of their lifespan. So overall, the Nano 2 has been a nice breath of fresh air. I honestly forgot how much I love the older Nano models. And so going down the line here, for lifting, this model has been exceptional. For CrossFit workouts, this model has also performed really well. For versatile workouts, I think it's gonna be hit or miss depending on your preferences. And then for short runs, they work pretty well for sprints and like 400-meter bouts and down, pass on them for long distance runs. And for daily wear, I would also pass on this shoe. So for the Reebok Nano 2, you can expect to pay $120 USD. Honestly, I'm pretty stoked that Reebok didn't raise the price on the shoe. I also felt like it would have been pretty awkward had they done that. So if you do want a really good, well-rounded shoe for lifting and CrossFit, and you don't want to put $140 USD into a new Nano model, this would definitely be a good option to explore, especially if you could find a sale to knock that price point down even a little bit more. Because if you put this model, I think, head to head to other like $100 USD shoes, I think this shoe is going to take the cake, and that is assuming that you can knock that price down if you could find them on sale at all. All right, so now who should invest in the Reebok Nano 2? So for starters, I think if you're a fan of this model and just the older Nano models at that, this shoe could be worth investing in sooner than later. And note, I'm not the biggest fan of using urgency in my reviews. Like, the whole point is not to be like buy, but I don't know how long this shoe will be available, and I don't know if Reebok is restocking sizes. So if you were a fan of the Nano 2, it might be worth picking up a pair now, even if you have a solid pair that you're using at the moment. I would say ride those out, and then once they die, now you have a Nano 2 and you didn't miss the opportunity to grab some. So definitely worth grabbing for Nano fans. Another context in which I think it's worth picking up the Nano 2 is if you're somebody who likes lower profile training shoes that give you a nice level of flexibility and that are lightweight. This shoe gives you a nice stability, it gives you a nice flexibility, and if you were a fan of the older Nano models and the Reebok Speed TR, this shoe I think should deliver a similar fit and feel regarding its performance, and I think you'll really enjoy that. The last context in which I think the Nano 2 will work really well for certain lifters and athletes is for wider feet. This model's toe box isn't as aggressively tapered, so if you like a little bit more forefoot room, this model could definitely be worth investing in. Now, who shouldn't invest in this shoe? Once again, I think if you're somebody who wants a thicker midsole that's a little bit more plush with its feel, or if you want a training shoe for some light strength work and some running, this is going to be a model that you're going to want to pass on. And then another context in which this shoe might fall short is that if you have exceptionally narrow feet, you might want to also pass on this shoe because you might have too much volume up here in the forefoot, and that's going to be a very niche case. But for my narrow-footed friends out there, you may want to consider that before investing in this shoe. So when it comes to the sizing and fit of the Reebok Nano 2, I think most lifters and athletes should be safe going true to size in this model. I have just about a centimeter of length at the end of my toe box with thicker socks on. If I wear thin socks, I have even more room. So overall, I found the fit of this shoe to feel pretty true, and I like how much volume you get in the forefoot and the amount of width you get. Now, that being said, if you have exceptionally wide feet, you might want to go up a half size in this shoe, because despite having a little bit of room at the end of my toe box, I could see there not being enough room regarding length and width for wider feet. So true to size for most foot anatomies. And then if you have exceptionally wide feet, you might want to go up a half size in this shoe. All right, so when it comes to the weight, heel to toe drop, and insole in the Reebok Nano 2, for my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 10.7 ounces. The heel to toe drop of this shoe sits at 4 millimeters. So for all of my 4 millimeter fans who love the OG Nano models for that heel to toe drop, you will still get that 4 millimeter drop in this shoe because it remains relatively unchanged. And then when it comes to the insole in this shoe, this model does not have a removable insole. Granted, you could take this insole out because it is only a light adhesive, but I think for most folks, I would say just leave it in there so you don't run into any durability issues long term. All right, so now let's cover the construction of the Reebok Nano 2. Now, before I dive in, I did confirm with Reebok that pretty much everything in this shoe remains unchanged, sans the branding up here on the tongue. So overall, you can expect a similar shoe to the OG Nano 2. Now, looking at the upper in this model, we have a blend of mesh and textile overlays. So we have a breathable mesh up here in the forefoot, and then we have some textile overlays around the toe box, through the midfoot, and then back here in the heel. Over here in the toe box, we also have that DuraGrip material that sticks around the toe. It's a little bit more grippy with its overall feel, and it adds a little layer of protection there for toe dragging movements. So for burpees and stuff like that, where you're going to be having a little bit of friction up there. Looking at the midsole in this model, we have an EVA foam midsole that runs throughout. It is a little bit more low profile, and it doesn't have a ton of compression. So once again, this model will feel a little bit more dense and rigid on the foot regarding its stability and feel on the ground. Looking at the outsole, we have a full rubber outsole, sans this break up here in the forefoot. We have a little break going through here, and then we also have a spot up here where we have some exposed foam. Overall, the grip has been pretty stellar. Now, if you go into like a really aggressive flexion with this shoe, you can see a little bit of glue here. So it's not the cleanest construction in my opinion, but overall it feels pretty durable and it should last plenty long for most folks. If you're training a lot outdoors, it would definitely be worth keeping an eye on this forefoot though, to make sure you're not breaking it down too quick. Looking at the midfoot construction, we have 6 core eyelets that wrap up with a 7th back here for lace lock. And then once again, the tongue itself is not gusseted, but we do have a tongue loop here for additional security, and that tongue is built with a slightly wider mesh material. And then looking at the heel, we have a nice cut back here to lock that heel down. Now you might have a little bit of friction up here at the top of the heel, so if you are a little bit more prone to having some rub at the top of your boot in your training shoes, I would suggest wearing longer socks when breaking the shoe in. These should also pass after a couple weeks, and you could also work them with your hands to kind of bend them out so they're not going to be rubbing nearly as much if that is something that typically bothers you when breaking in shoes. Overall though, that wraps up the construction of the Reebok Nano 2. If you have additional questions on this model, drop a comment down below. All right, y'all, that wraps up my review of the Reebok Nano 2. Honestly, Reebok, can you start restocking some of your older models, or at least doing like small batch releases more regularly? It was really nice getting to train in this shoe again, and honestly, I miss so many of your older models. But that said, if you have additional questions on the Nano 2 or this review, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one.